Hey everyone, good evening to you all. Hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday evening, a very hot evening, I might say. The heat is on. Um, and then I don't think that the subject matter of hand this evening is going to make the heat any better because it's a very heated topic that we're going to be discussing this evening: women and domestic violence. And so I have online currently joining us, I have Mrs. Tensi Ramsey, and she herself has been a victim of domestic violence. And I also have retired superintendent of police from the Jamaica Constabulary Force, woman superintendent Oberlin Smith White. And this evening, we just want to ask you if you are in tuned. Um, we value your views, we value your opinions. So we ask you to share your comments with us, just so that we can get, just your thoughts and your ideas as we look at this very interesting, very a topic of extreme concern. It should be to every one of us, whether we have daughters or we have sons, we have brothers or sisters, mothers, fathers. It is a topic of intense concern to all of us. And so I am just going to be inviting on our set Mrs. Ramsey. Hi, Mrs. Ramsey. How do you do?
Hi, Marcia. I'm well, just hot, but I'm well.
Thank you so much for joining me and,
You're
for
welcome.
sharing with, our viewers this evening, because we know this is a topic of concern, and it's a topic that a lot of persons have experienced themselves but are quite silent on it. And I am honored that you have chosen Sears Bite and a Mouthful as your first official platform, to go public with this interesting topic. And then I also am inviting Mrs. Smith White, Superintendent Smith White. Viewers, take a good look at this lady in white. She says she is retired at 45 years old because she doesn't look a day older than that. And so we will leave it at that.
Thank you
And
very much
so
for having me.
you're most welcome. And thank you so much for, agreeing to be on the program. I know you are retired. I know you want to take life on an easy street now. I mean, granted, you have worked in so many different departments over the past years, which you will tell us later on. So we do thank you.
I am
And
more busy now than before.
you see, that's how it should be because you know what? With all the experience under your belt, both of you, it's time for you to write your books. It's time for you to
I
go
am doing
out.
mine. Mine will be published on the 5th of March, 2022.
Okay, and I know
Yeah.
Mrs. Ramsey's also has something in the making. So the world is waiting to hear these things because most of the times this is a subject that is swept under the carpet. And for both of you, I really applaud you, especially you, Mrs. Ramsey, because it's not all the time that people really want to come out and, as we say back home, put the dirty laundry out there for everybody to see. But the fact is that a lot of us that do have dirty laundries, but we're not trying to hear them. We're trying to hide them under the bushel or wherever we hide them. And so, in preparation for my shows, I normally try to do a little bit of research, so that I am more educated on what we do and what we discuss. And so when I looked at domestic abuse, it is said that domestic abuse, also called domestic violence or intimate partner violence, can be defined as a pattern of behavior in any relationship that is used to gain or maintain power and control over an intimate partner. Abuse can be either physical, sexual, emotional, economical, or psychological. And this includes any behavior that frightens, intimidates, terrorizes, manipulate, hurt, humiliate, blame, injure, or wound someone. And I will stop there for the time being. Mrs. Smith, you're on twice.
Yeah, I'm trying to get rid of one.
Okay. All right. So that's not a problem. Um, so, Mrs. Ramsey, let me ask you a question. And this is a question that you yourself might not be able to answer. But when did the, can you share with all the viewers, both here on Facebook and YouTube, watching live or via replay, how did the story begin? What was life like before the nightmare began? And what do you think caused the beginning of it?
Okay. All right. So before the nightmare began,
Mm-hmm.
things appeared to have been very good. From my perspective, it seemed as if everything was okay. Like I was having a very good relationship, and to the point where I had a son, and or we had a son together. And so I thought that everything was good. We're connected with family and everything. But the whole nightmare began when I started getting promotions on my job. Back then, I was in Jamaica, and I started out at this company as a clerical assistant. I got promoted to a junior secretary, then a senior secretary. Then I went up to an administrative assistant, and I was just moving through the ranks in my workplace. And so my partner felt threatened. He started just started saying things, that were not true, like saying like, this is how you got your promotion, like things I wouldn't say on air. This is how you got your promotion.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I'm qualified, and it bothered me, and I used to say like, why would you think like that? I'm qualified. I went to school. I'm educated. What are you talking about? But it
Mm-hmm.
got to the point where he just started, to verbalize these things. And I think as time went on, he talked about it so much, and he started to believe his lies. And so it became no longer verbal, but then it became physical. And that's when the whole thing just started to snowball. Like everything just started going down. Like whatever I do, it doesn't matter how innocent it is. To him, it was like something else is going on. It doesn't matter. Like these stories that he devised, these stories to the point where at some point in time I started believing this. Like, I wonder if this is so. I wonder if I did this, or if I engaged in that action and wasn't aware of it, because it started to, like, as it were, seep into my brain. Like it like transformed me from who I am, to the point where I started to lose my self-esteem. I started to see myself in the names that I was being called. So that's what happened in my story in a nutshell.
And it's interesting, and I will come back to that. But we had a second victim who should have been on this evening, and just maybe about 20-25 minutes before the show started, I got a call from her. She is still in the process of trying to work out, through the courts and properties and stuff like that. And she was actually evicted just now. So, I mean, it's real. It's real. It's real. But I noticed that you said that you started actually believing and questioning yourself to see if these were actually things that subconsciously you had done, that you were not aware of. Um, Superintendent Smith. Oh, Yvonne Wright is online, and she says, "Hey, Oberlin, hello. Happy to see you. I know
Hi,
you're
right.
in
How
the,"
are you?
she says, you're a girl in the subject, right?
Yes.
So, tell me something, because you have been at this for a number of years. And you're a mom. You said you have a daughter. You also have a son. I don't know if you have sisters, but
Yes, I
from
do.
where you sit and you see these things coming through to you every day, how does it make you feel thinking that this could be a family
No.
member?
It happens in my family because
Oh,
up to now the world has not recognized domestic violence because we see domestic violence as a family matter, as something private, and it
mm-hmm,
is accepted by society. It is accepted. Is the woman cause it? What did
mm-hmm,
you do to make him angry? What
mm-hmm,
did you do to cause him to do it? And go and cook some good food for the man. So it happens because of the acceptance of society. And
mm-hmm,
until we are educated enough to recognize that we are treating the victim in
hmm,
the worst way and not the perpetrator, then domestic violence will continue. Because we have a culture of blaming the victim. It is the
mm-hmm.
victim's fault. It's because of you. Why? And the man will do it too. He will say, "You
You
caused me
caused
to do
me.
it," you know, and he knows that it is not going to be reported. So these are some of the things that happens. So it make me feel sometimes helpless,
Mm-hmm,
sometimes angry, but I understand because so it is my purpose is to make everybody aware as much as I can reach, to make everybody aware of what domestic violence is and how we can help the victim and the perpetrator. Because remember, as you were talking backstage about this young man,
mm-hmm,
violence is learned behavior. Violence is learned behavior.
mm-hmm,
If a boy grows up in a violent home, it is very likely that he will be violent. If a
mm,
girl grows up in a violent home, it is very likely that she will accept violence. We we live what we see and what we are exposed to. So we
mm-hmm,
have to make people aware of domestic violence. And domestic violence is a family violence. It has to do with it's a little bit more than you said. It is a little bit more. It is family, wife and husband, our intimate partner, parents and children.
mm-hmm,
And it moves on to the elderly. So a mother who has a son, for example, and the father is not taking care of that child, and the mother is continue to be abusive to that
mm-hmm,
child only know violence. In the same way that a father is in the home and the father is very violent to the mother, that boy will grow to accept that violence is okay. This is how we resolve our differences in with violence. So for him, violence is okay. And
mm-hmm.
domestic violence is more about power and control. So whether it's the parent controlling the child or it's the partner controlling the other, it's
Mm-hmm.
about power and control and the acceptance of society that cause it to go on and on.
But you brought up the subject of my speaking backstage, and so I will just emphasize on that a little bit. Viewers, I was just sharing with my panelists earlier on that today I was actually talking to a young man, someone that I know, that I grew up with, and all of that. And you were just talking about the podcast, and he was complimenting me and all of that. And I just happened to say to him, that tonight I'm dealing with a subject matter that is of interest to you. Would you like to come on? And so I started to share with him, the topic, women and domestic violence. So I said, you want to tell me by any chance what made you do it? And he said, he shared with me that when he was about 16 thereabout, he saw his father was always beating his mom. So he said at that age, he decided that if his dad hit his mom again, he was going to deal with his father. So he busted his dad's head. Um, to me last year, he went with Mr. Boylan's. He busted his dad's head. And he said not only did his father beat him, but his mom beat him as well. And he said his life became a living hell. He could no longer eat within the household because his father says him a man and he must promote and he must support him and stuff like that. His clothes could not be washed there. He couldn't bathe there because, nothing was being provided for him. And he said it's ironic that the same woman that he was protecting, his mother, turned against him, right? And so he said he developed certain hatred for his mom. So he said he didn't realize how much he was bitter. But he says that as he went up, because he'd always tell himself that me, I'd never treat my wife, my partner, the way how my father treated my mom. But he said after being in a relationship, he doesn't know what happened. And then he said gradually he found himself just starting to say derogatory things, just started demeaning words, all the abusive words you can think, until he said one day he realized that he hit her and she just from one end of the room to the other. When he punched her, she went to the other side of the room. And he said when he did that, the impact, the sound of it, like caused him to think. And he said within himself, he wondered, did I really do that? But then he said he realized that it only became progressively worse until eventually the woman moved out. And he said when she moved out and took his kids, he realized that, hey, if I don't do better, it's going to get worse. So he said for about 7 to 8 years, he did not have a relationship. And he sought counseling. And now he's happily married. And, he said, Marcia, one thing I vow is that I would never hit another woman. And if a man should hit my daughter, I'm going to kill him. That's what he said to me today. So I asked him to come on the program and he said to me, he said, no, I will come with I will come with men, but I won't come with the women because they will try to castigate me. So I'm hoping that at some point, I'm trying to fix this thing. At some point, I can have some men who really will join us and share with us what's the thought process that really goes through their mind, when you can share your most intimate of relationship with a woman and yet still you abuse them, in such ways that you wouldn't want anybody to touch your kids, your sister, your daughter, but the woman that you're most intimate with, you do that to them. But, because girl 104 is she's saying that it's because the same way men are conditioned to be that way from what they see as children, some women are conditioned to accept it. And that is so true.
Yeah.
A lot of times women figure that, okay, I grew up and I saw my mom accepting this kind of behavior. So why do I need to be different? It's the norm. In some cultures, it is actually expected that because the man is the head of the household and all of that, then women, suffer such abuse at these men. And they don't see it as being abusive. They see it as actually um, them writing the woman or whatever, however they might want to
It's
do
an
it.
entitlement. They see it as an entitlement. They're
Yeah.
entitled to do it. This is my family. I am head, and I am supposed to exert power or
Mhm.
control. So it's an entitlement. That's how they see it.
But Mrs. Ramsey, I have a question here, and you've already answered it because I was asking how was your mental state then, but you answered mentally, emotionally, psychologically. You started to question yourself as to whether or not these were actually part of your thing. Um, my question to you though, Mrs. Ramsey, because you're not just a panelist. You're my partner. You're my sparring. You're my best friend. You're my confidant. You are my unununus. You're everything. You were and still is a financially. dependent person. Why did you put up with it?
Well, first of all, like Miss Mrs. Smith White said, Oberlin said, sometimes when you're in a situation, even though I was not raised in an environment where I saw my father hitting my mom, because I wasn't raised with a father. I was raised in a
Mhm.
single home. It's my mom, and she was a tough woman. But I stuck with it because, for one, we had a son together, and I was scared that if I left him, that somewhere along, the line, my son is going to be either angry with me, blame me, or I'm going to lose my son, as it were. And I was afraid of that because my son was very young. And also, like Oberlin said, I was also afraid of him witnessing this in one breath, but then I was afraid of losing him. I'm afraid of how he would see me, of what would happen if somewhere along the line he's going to say, "You are the reason why." He's going
Mhm.
to blame me. And I was also concerned about our family, like my family. What are they going to think of me? Like, you are weak. You didn't let this thing work. Or,
Mhm.
or his family is going to blame me for what I really didn't do. But then I was just concerned about that. And the environment on a whole, and based on where I worked at a website company, and I was in administration, and I'm looking like, okay, they look up on me. People look at me like a role model, and for them to hear that this is happening to me, and not just happening that I left, what are they going to think about me? So there was like a whole bunch of stuff, like in my head, like racing thoughts, as it were, but me trying to reason within myself: should I make the run, or should I stay and just, as it were, wear a mask and appear as if everything is fine? So that's what held me for that length of time without making that move. I was, not that I wasn't strong, but I was afraid. There was this fear.
Love,
Number
fear,
one,
and hope.
yes, and also to Oberlin, no disrespect to your profession, he was a police, and I was afraid because
Yeah.
this man has a licensed firearm,
Okay.
and he threatened me.
Mm.
I lived in threat. I had that gun drawn to my ears many times. Like, I'm gonna blow out your brain. That was the fear. And to top it all, when I reported it, every time I reported it, it got back to him. His friends told
Yeah.
him. His friends told him. And he would say to me, "Are you stupid? You're going to
Mm.
report a cop to a cop. Are you stupid?" They told him. So it was a lot of fear, a lot of things going on, to the point where he was like threatening my family, like, "If you ever leave me, and I'm going to kill your family." And so I was afraid because I didn't want my family to die. You know what I mean? I said, "I'd rather you kill me, but don't kill my family. Leave my family alone because they're not in this." So it was a lot of fear, a lot of things that compounded why I stayed for the length of time before I decided, like, "Hey, look, kill me or not, I'm going to go." It
You mentioned length of time. How long did this last?
lasted a little bit over a year. A little bit over a year.
But you mentioned your position, where you worked and all of that. You alluded to that. But you were saying that, because people looked up to you and, did he leave physical marks on you when during those occasions?
Hmm.
So
Yep.
don't you think that when you went to work they saw that, or what excuse did you make for those
I hit myself somewhere. I hit my, I bumped in something. Something. I
or
just found some story and
the
just said it.
usual you bumped into the
Yeah,
doorway?
I bumped into, yes, and what's wrong here? Like, "Oh no, I was doing something," and just some excuse I found because I was just embarrassed and everything too. That.
Um, I had written down a question here for you because you grew up in the church. You spent all your years in the church. Did you seek counseling from the church during this period of time, or as you said, you didn't want the church to know?
No. Well, there was probably like maybe one or two persons who knew. But,
Confidentially.
but like Oberlin said, people say like he's gonna change.
Yeah.
Just he's just pray.
That goes hard.
Just like Oberlin say like stay, don't go. You have your child, So like I stayed. I listened to them. I stayed.
Marcia, this is a challenge that we face. This is a challenge that we face. Everywhere the victim turns, there's a roadblock. The police is going to say, you come to the station too often. She said it, Tessa said it. The police said, if they're my friends, or can you report me to them? So the police say that.
Hold the thought there, so Oberlin, because girl is saying, Mrs. Ramsey, what was this childhood like? Do you know where his behavior stemmed from? It sounds like his own lack of self-confidence. And then she said, oh, that's why I'm scared to date police. Best liars. Then don't bash the church so much, because both Tensi and I are church girls. No matter what we go through, we're still there. She said church is the worst because they're against divorce. Nowadays, they're not. They have wisened up. Most of them have. And they are blinded by their faith. Now, Oberlin, I come back to you. Can you continue with your train of thought?
Okay. And I stray from the train of thought. But okay, I was saying that the problem with us is that nobody takes the side of the victim. Nobody. Just nobody. Parents will say, me did tell you son of a married to him. Or he is a nice man because he puts on a very nice face to the parents. And his family is going to say, you are the trouble who come into our family. And if she go to pastor is going to say, till death do us part. Work it out. Work on it. God ordained marriage. And so you have to work it. And nobody will call the man and say, and let him take responsibility. And if she goes to the counselor will tell her what to do instead of hearing the story. Some counselors, nowadays it's different. But a lot of things that cause a victim to stay in the relationship. We can stay by on the outside and say to the victim, why don't she leave? She's in a big position. But as she said, and she said it for all victims, because it is for everyone. It is love, it is hope, it is fear. She loves him and she hopes that he will change. She fears that if she leaves, he's going to kill her. And sometimes the silent threat is there. Sometimes the man doesn't open his mouth, but like she said, if her husband was a policeman, he will just put down the gun. So she's fearful that if she leaves, and the next thing is hope. She's hoping that he will change. So all these things keep a victim inside of her. And society just does not understand all the issues that the victim faces and all the issues that the victim go through. So we say, why don't she leave? But it's not just up and leave. Because a victim will make a report at a police station 20 times before, 20 times or more before she really decides to leave. And even when she leaves, she's in a dilemma because she is fearful that it is better to stay because if I leave, I'm going to die. Because this is how these perpetrators are. And sometimes they will come and they will bawl too. And everybody will see the tears that this man is going to change. And then the love bombing.
And he really loves her. Look how he's crying. He wants his family.
But the love bombing starts and then the abuse starts because the man is not helped. He didn't get any help. So what is this phase is going to go and then the abuse will start again unless that person gets help or comes to the realization that he's doing wrong.
But Oberlin, if you look at a lot of situations,
yes,
I'm glad that you're not biased where the police force is concerned because you do know that things happen. And it's sad because a lot of times women stay or they go back. And when you go back, it's even worse than when you had before. If you stayed, it was bad. But when you leave and go back, it becomes worse, you know. And it is sad because a lot of women go back to their death, to be
Yeah.
they're being dismembered, to they becoming, physically damaged for the rest of their lives, not just no, psychologically and otherwise, but physically. A lot of women are left
Dismembered. Um,
dismembered and all of that, acid, all this kind of a
right.
thing.
Yeah.
Elijah has joined the conversation, and Elijah, being a woman of God, she said, God ordained marriage, but not abuse. Because girl said, I used to watch my mom, a pastor's wife, try to mend relationships that have abusive men in it, and it got me upset. I used to tell her that I would never include her in my business because she will let a man abuse me. Cause girl, I want to hear your comment here. Have you ever sat down and talked to your mom about why she would encourage women to stay in an abusive relationship? Would she encourage you as her daughter to stay in a abusive relationship? Okay, so I see you commenting here. But there was one successful story where my uncle changed and did a complete turnabout. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But I'm waiting on your response, cause girl, would your mom be happy if you were in a abusive relationship? Let me hear your response to that. So, Mrs. Ramsey, let me ask you though, what was the turnabout when you decided to leave? What caused you to leave?
My son caused me to leave. At the time, he was 5 years old, and I had a sitter who took care of him from he was 2 months old. And
Mm,
I was at work one day, and she called me and said something to me that was very disturbing. So a comment that he made, and so I just went home. Like I just because my job, I had a vehicle that was assigned to me, so I could just drive home. I drove home and I just literally ran inside and I knelt down before him and I said and I held him and I said, "What's the matter?" And he started to cry. And I said to him, "What did you say to your sitter?" And when he repeated it, I felt like my heart was ripped from my stomach. He said, "Mom, if I wasn't born, Dad wouldn't treat you bad. I'm
Oh my
sorry I was
God.
born." And when he said that,
how old was he?
5 years old, 5 years old, I was on my knee to be in line with his face. And I said, "What?" And he repeated it. And I held him to myself and I cried with him. And I said to him, "Baby, I make you a promise. You will never, ever see mommy abused again. And guess what? You are not the cause for this. You are not. I love you. You're my loved child. I love you. And guess what? I promise you." I said, "Baby, God is going to take us out of this. I promise you." And he said, "Okay." He was 7. He said, "Okay, mommy." I held him and I kissed him. And it took me a while before I went back to work. And when I went back to work, I didn't cry. I was just bawling. And I said, "God, I can't let my son," he's 5. And as Oberlin said, I don't want him to grow up to be an abuser. I don't want him to think it's the norm. I don't want him to think that that's how, to live. And again, I don't want him to think that mommy's a weakling. So now that I hear that from him, I recognize that that's time to go.
Yeah.
Like I got my green light, yes. Because he's concerned about mommy and he's also putting the blame on himself. And I said, "No, I don't want you to do that."
Young
And
age
that's what
to do
that's
that.
what a 5 year old, that's what prompted me. I said, "I'm out." Yeah.
But Mrs. Ramsey, I don't want you to tell us your employer. I don't want you to, disclose that. But can you tell our viewers, including Oberlin, what do you do now and what prompted you to do what you're doing now?
Well, I'm a licensed professional counselor and I counsel domestic violence clients and also behavioral health people. I do behavioral mental health, but 50-50. So I have domestic violence counseling that I do. And so I work with that population. And at first, it was not very easy because when I started working with them, there was a lot of counter transference. Because when they came to me with things, and I knew like it's like you're talking my story, it took a lot out of me not to just jump in and be the restaurant and leave the man, leave, that's a red flag. And so during that time, I had to like constantly be in my supervisor's office, and I'm like, I can't do this. I'm done. He's like, you can do it. I said, no, I can't, because her story is like my story, and I'm getting angry when I'm listening to her. I'm getting so angry, like I want to just grab her and say, you need to get out. And he's like, no, you can't do that. You take that off, put on a professional hat, and start looking at it from a different perspective. Guide her, and in guiding her, she will see what you're trying to say without even saying to her, leave the man. But just you're guiding her and just saying, what are the red flags? How do you view yourself? Opening leading questions for the person to see themselves. And so it took me a while to just kind of like separate myself, to be hearing someone's story, and it is my story, and I'm no longer like I'm given the support, but I'm not so drawn into it, and there's no counter transference. I don't get angry. I can do it from a very professional and just separate Tensi from, what is going on around me.
Oh, Belinda, I know you have had some professional. I'm going to come back to you, Tensi. You're also professionally trained to deal with DV. Can you tell us a little bit of some of your training that you have been through?
Well, what should I say now? It was Navlet Grant, Navlet Grant, Deputy Commissioner of Police, who went abroad and she got training in DV. And after I came from Darfur in 2010, after the Tivoli operation, yes, and I went to Navlet for support, and she did a domestic violence training in Kingston Western, and that was when I started receiving training myself in domestic violence. Because while I knew about domestic violence before, I was not so much afraid with the intricacies of domestic violence. So the training include the red flag, how to identify red flag in a relationship, the type of violence that will be perpetrated against the victim, the help seeking process. Let me see. Yeah, the help seeking, how both parties, the Domestic Violence Act that we have that needs to be revised, because we really don't have an act that deals with the criminal proceedings in domestic violence in Jamaica. I don't know about the different states in the US, because our domestic violence act is very limited, very limited. And how the police can help. That was also a part of the training, how police can help a victim of domestic violence, because we have to understand that even though the victim will go to the police station one time, they will go 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, because what a victim really need is for the violence to stop. It's not so much for the person to go behind bars, although it takes that for some people to recognize the wrong that they're doing. But what the victim really need is for the person to stop. So we have to receive training in that, how to help people without being judgmental also, because we are not supposed to be judgmental. Nobody is supposed to be. Why you don't leave the man? So why you coming to the station so many times? This sort of thing. We're not supposed to be judgmental, because domestic violence is so difficult to deal with. We're talking about family and family issues. So unless the victim wants to take it further, like in the case we have in Jamaica right now, that big case with George Wright, You heard about it?
Is that the politician?
Yes, where the
Yes.
he made a report, and the woman made a report, and then they didn't go any further because maybe somebody went to her.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to understand all these issues, all these things happen when it comes on to intimate partner violence.
But you touch on some interesting points there. And I mean, we're talking about Jamaica, and it's about affluent, influence, who knows who, and who, title and all. We love titles in Jamaica. And it's interesting because the bigger the person's position, the more clout they have. And the more persons that they have in their corner, then the better off they are that, some cases will disappear off the radar. And it is interesting because this should not be so. I was reading something the other day that I think it was Dr. Michael Abram posted it on his page. Domestic violence, but it's in keeping about talking about accountability and responsibility.
Yeah.
She is the prime minister of a country, and she was in violation of the COVID restrictive laws, whatever, and she was locked up. She was charged, right? Now we have persons. You have superintendents who are beating their wives. You have police, the regular policeman. You have all the different ranking officers that their wives lives in fear. I can tell you an incident. I remember my daughter was not yet born. So that was maybe about, I lived at home. So that was maybe about 35 years ago, maybe. Yeah. I, Coronation Market, Mrs. White. And right upon King Street there, so the elites used to go right up there to shop where the OS office is, right? So my father's office was just on that stretch of road. So, like, you go to the market and you have this person, you buy your right banana, you leave your stuff right there, you have persons that you buy from. So you would always meet upon other persons on your spot. So I remember one morning early, because we used to go to the market early, maybe about 6:37, we were meeting up at the spot. And this lady, affluent lady, lived in Stony Hill, and she comes, and this morning she had her little boy with her, maybe about a 5-year-old boy or something like that. So he was crying because he wanted the banana. And she gave him one, but when he peeled it, it had a little black spot on it. So he tossed it. And like she said, no, you can't toss it there and whatever. So she picked it up and whatever. And he was crying, and she decided she wasn't going to give him another banana. So he was crying. And, parents, she got a little bit agitated because he was really going on and carrying on. And she slapped him. Not anything to write home about. She just slapped him and like, stop it now. Ladies, viewers, can I tell you something? That little boy acted the more. And he said, you just wait until I go home. You just wait until I go home. I'm going to tell daddy that you hit me. Don't you hear? Daddy says you're not to hit me. Daddy's going to hit your head against the wall. And she was trying to shut him up, but she couldn't shut him up. She couldn't shut him up fast enough. And so it tells us right there, we all looked at each other, and I'm like, wow, I wish that this was my boy. Because, he probably would have get home to tell daddy, because that's what he saw though. So what are you going to say to him when daddy's at home abusing her because she's not supposed to correct him?
Yeah.
What does he do when he comes out on the roadway? What
Children
does he do when he tries to correct
Children.
and stuff like that? So
What type of man will he be?
yes. So the struggles are real, and it's funny. But Mrs. Ramsey, let me ask you something. Having gone through this, what are some of the signs that you say to ladies that are red flags? We spoke about red flags earlier on, but let's look at them and start to itemize them. What are some of the red flags we look at?
There are tons of red flags, but
Just give us some major ones.
some of the major ones is the first thing. Like if you're in a relationship, and the first one, which I think, which is the most important one, the man starts to isolate you, like to say to you, like, I don't like your friend. I don't want you to keep company with that person anymore. So, and or I don't like your family member. Well, and he wants you for himself, and I don't want him to come to my house. So that's one of the big red flag. Number two, like he takes your phone and he checks your phone, like he checks to see who's calling you, or he wants to know, who's calling you, who's texting you. So that's another red flag. And some of them are, they're like, and I mean, pardon my ladies who are not working, but some of them are like, I don't want you to work. I want you to stay home and to make sure when I come home, my dinner is ready and to take care of my kids, because they want you to themselves. They want to know where you are at all times, right? And that's not necessarily so in every situation, because as long as a man can afford it and say, stay home, then say, hey, I'll stay home. As long as it doesn't mean you want me to isolate me, to abuse me. But if you want me to stay home, and I'll stay home, and come weekend, you still give me my money that I would normally get when I'm working. But like some of them, they don't want the woman to work. They don't want you to have a lot of friends. They want you to themselves. And another thing too, and it's common. I didn't even know that was common, but it's common. Like the woman goes out and come back, and they check them. Like check you out, see, like where have you been? That kind of thing. They do that, and they just want to be like in everything. Check on you, like you're out. You're even at work. And they'll be like calling you, like blowing up your phone, like, where are you? I'm at work, things like that. So it's a total control piece. The separation, keeping you away from everybody, your friends, your loved ones. So that when they start to abuse you now, then you have nobody, because your friend might say, hey, look, you didn't want to talk to me a month or two ago. You blocked me from your Facebook page. You do this, you do that. So, hey, stay over there, I'm over here. So because they know this person has you to themselves to control you. So the biggest one is the control piece, and isolate you.
Is there anything you want to add to that, Ubelin?
Moving too fast into the relationship. Moving too fast. Too fast. Yes. He's showered the woman with things, and he wants to marry her now. He wants to have sex now. He wants, because of the control, not respecting your boundaries. Is another very prominent one.
It's funny because I wouldn't look at this as and I'm sure that maybe a lot of people. You want to repeat that one again?
You mean moving too fast with the relationship? Yes, love bombing, they call it. Love bombing. Shower the person with gifts and not allowing her to go far. He has to be with her or everywhere. And she's thinking, oh, I found my soulmate. This is Mr. Right. This man is interested in me. But too fast is a sign of control. Yes. Not respecting your boundaries is another form of big of control.
I would never ever see that one as a
yes,
an area of
and that is one right up front in a relationship. And there are so many instances that I could share on that, but
can you share one?
I remember,
without calling names.
yes, I remember this young lady, a woman police also. She had a relationship with this man, and I was at the police complaints department, but there was a complaint with her, and I remember the man coming with her to answer to the complaint, and I was questioning, why did he come with her? That's my question. And other people were saying to me, oh, the man he loves her, and that's the reason. But I said, it doesn't concern him. She's a free woman, she's independent. Why did he come with her? Well, afterwards, one of my friends and I, we had to go to her house because he would time her from work. He would time her. She leaves work at 4, and he would give her like half hour or so to come home. That was the start of the abuse. And if she ever come home 5 minutes later than the time that he gave her, it would be a beating. And I said, okay, see, I was saying it all along that this man was very controlling when when he came with her for the first time to give that report. I saw it. But sometimes people are in the
Is it that you
relationship.
picked it? Did this happen after you had done um your
No,
training
no, before. Long
before?
before.
So
Long before.
it's ironic because you had the gifting to pick this up long before you were actually trained.
Because I am a sort of assertive person, I'm very careful where men are concerned. I raise my children alone. And I've never seen abuse when I was young. My husband died when I was young. And I made a concerted effort, even at that age, at 23, to say, I don't want a man because I want to raise my children alone, because I don't want a man to come and be a lion. Lion don't take care of any other children apart from his. He will kill them. So I said that I didn't want a man to come in. And I didn't have any experience of abuse even then. But I made that decision. So I'm very careful where some things are concerned. So I could see, why is he so into her? So early. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
they just started. And other people thought I was being, oh, you don't know love.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Cause girl is still here, giving us her her
I
pennies and
sent you I
cents.
sent you a message.
Okay, I'm gonna look at that.
Yeah, because
But she says, I asked her a question about her mom, and if you remember me asking her
Mhm.
if her mom would want her to be in an abusive relationship, and she said she doesn't tell her anything because she never include her in her business because she will let a man abuse me. That is sad when your daughter can think that you would give the man more power over your own child.
what did
Um,
happen?
she tries to make the man change. Oh my God. She doesn't believe in divorce. And then Lila says the complete change and turnabout is rare. And that is true. Because a man will rather to kill the woman, kill the children, and kill himself than to have the woman leave him. Because it's always about power. It's always about, men tend to have this thing to say that if a woman leaves them, their friend is going to laugh at them, or their friends is going to think, family and friends, they always have this thing, oh, what will people think? You're going to make people think this about me, or you're going to make people say this about me, or co-workers, or whatever. But then again, where does the woman fit in when you're abusing this woman, and all of these things that you're doing to this woman? How do you think she feels? And it's funny that our pastors, I think our churches have failed a whole lot when
I
it
can
comes.
only give you 2 minutes more because I have another Zoom. Thank you.
Okay, yeah,
I am very sorry because I did not remember that I have a
okay,
Zoom, a
okay,
Rotary Zoom, and I'm a
okay.
part of it. And they text me.
All right, that's not a problem. We're wrapping up now, though. Any parting word you want to leave before you go, Mrs. White?
Okay. My parting word is to men, to men who are listening.
Mm-hmm.
We are past the submissive stage. We need to see our women as partners, equal partners. We have passed that stage of where we think that women should be submissive. It's not working.
Mm-hmm.
And for people on the outside of a relationship, give support in whatever way you can. And please don't be judgmental, and don't tell the woman that she should leave and why you don't leave. These are not words it's not helping. It doesn't help
Mm-hmm.
at all. It only make her go back and stay in the relationship because she's not getting help. So be supportive as much as you can. We have to be supportive as much as we can, and
Mm-hmm.
listen. Active listening. Active. We don't listen enough, and we don't get involved enough because we think domestic violence is a private matter. It is not a private matter. Help the victim and help the perpetrator too, if we can. Yes.
Okay. All right. And with that, I say thank you so very much, Mrs. Smith White, for being with me.
Yes.
And of course, Tensi and I will continue the conversation
Yes.
at
I'm
this
so sorry because
to
I
wrap
really
up.
didn't remember. So many, that's why I told you before, that I'm more busy now than before I retire.
And guess what? You're doing good deeds. You're spreading the deeds of kindness and
Yes,
you're spreading yourself. So thank you so much for this amazing. It's been almost 1 hour. Thank you so
yes,
much.
yes,
And I do look forward because there are other programs that I have so much more to hear from you, and I'll give
yes.
you adequate notice in the future because there are a whole range of other topics that we're going to be carrying on from this conversation.
All right,
Go
thank
light your
you.
candle in your other meeting, and thank you so much again. And we will be in
Yes,
touch. All right?
okay.
Nice
Yes.
meeting you.
Goodbye. Yes,
All
nice
right.
meeting
Nice
you.
meeting you. Yes.
So, Mrs. Ramsey, we're
Yes.
here. What kind of a advice would you give? I know you do it every day at work.
So I would say, okay, are you finished? Sorry.
Yeah. What kind of advice? Somebody listening now, listening in the future.
So
What
I
kind of advice can you give them?
Right. So I'd say to every woman that's listening in, if you are involved in a domestic violent relationship right now, you're not yet married, don't go into marriage because you see the signs already. Once the signs are there, clearly make a run for it. Because don't think that when I get married to this man, or if I get married to this man, then he's going to change. It's not going to happen. Whoever he is, that's who he is. You don't need to be in that. And when you're in this, if you are in this situation, like the other Mrs. Smith said,
What?
it's very hard sometimes to talk about it because you're going to feel judged. So if you're not in that situation, don't be quick to judge the person who is in the situation. Use empathy. Put yourself in that person's place. What would it be like if I could give support instead of criticizing this person? And again, sometimes people go in situations blindly. And as Marcia said, sometimes it's a cultural thing because I do counsel women who are in domestic violent relationship. And it's the cultural piece plays a lot, but my duty is to learn their culture so that
Mhm.
I will put my foot in my mouth by saying something that's going to make them feel offended or feel like I'm judging them. So
Mhm.
my duty is to find out what's the cultural piece. What is it like in your culture? Like for some cultures, they will say, look, this is a situation. If my husband is abusing me and I go home and tell my mom points the finger at me. My mom said, what did you not do right? Basically, that's it, point blank period. What did you not do? Or how do you allow this man to get to this point where he wants to abuse you or started to abuse you? So then we have to look at that piece. So overall, the overall message is that just don't be judgmental, be supportive. And if you know someone who comes and they share with you what they're going through in a relationship and they're not yet married, just encourage them, just in a very subtle way. Say, you might want to give this thing a little bit more time before you make that final move to put on that final ring, even if they're engaged. Because remember,
Mhm.
engagement is not married. Is not married. So you say, look, if you have not yet put on that ring, and if you even have a child for the man, and you are not married, and he starts to abuse you, don't marry because of the child. Don't do it. It's not gonna change anything. Because if the person is an abuser, that's exactly who he is. So
Okay,
just be supportive. Yeah.
Tracy, a lot of time people look at it and they say, okay, fine. They see all the signs and everything that is there, but they're like, okay, fine, I'm in this. I have a child. It's a long-term relationship. Oh, he didn't mean anything. He called me a B word or he called me a double word but he didn't mean anything. And then he will say, the person will say, that's how I talk. I don't mean anything about it. But what these things might seem very subtle, But you have men who go through relationship and relationship and relationship. And then you have the men who, the woman is always the cause. It's always she did this or she said this, and based on what she said, I had to slap her. Based on what she said, I had to shut her down. Based on what she said, whatever. Hey Donna, Donna says she finally found us. Hey Donna, you had problems finding us. Sorry about that. So what do we do? What do we say? Um, Abuse. We talk about the sexual abuse where the men think that because they put a ring on your finger, then, you know, um, they should sexually, when they say, I'm ready, you should be ready, there should be no argument. And so they don't believe that they are raping their wives because her body belongs to him because he's the husband, he's the man, he's the this and the that. You know, um, a lot of people might not have gone through, and some do go through the sexual abuse, but they just tell themselves that, hey, I'm his wife. So I'm his property. I'm his whenever he wants, however he wants. You mentioned earlier on all the things, the name calling, the insult, the trust issue, the act of jealousy and possession, the monitoring, where do you go, who do you call, who do you spend your time with, control of finances, because a lot of time they figure that if they can control the finances, they control the purse string. You know that there are actually women who works, Mrs. Ramsey, and I'm sure you know this, that they have to take their entire paycheck to the man.
Yes, I've heard of instances like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
they have to take that
Mhm.
paycheck to the man, and he will determine how much he gets out of that,
Mhm.
and all of that. So, I mean, I don't know
That's a form of abuse too.
and deal with these kind of things. The threat is one of the most dangerous thing that you spoke about. How
Hmm.
can you love a woman, you make love, most intimately, and then you're going to pull a gun and put it to her head and say, I'm going to blow your brain out? How do you love your child and you abuse your wife in front of your child, you know, consistently, steadily? How do you do it? Um, I don't know. Elijah said, nobody getting my paycheck must be mad, right? But these are all some of the things that are happening out there, and it's much wider than we have even touched on tonight, Tensi, because
Yes.
some women are literally in fear of their
Yeah,
lives.
they're afraid. Yes.
They are
Yes.
terrified of leaving, and the abusers, Tensi, sometimes go further because we have seen many cases that abusers have killed the wife,
Hmm.
children, and then go to family's house and wipe out an entire family, the mothers, the
Yes.
fathers.
Yes.
I had a friend some time ago back home in Jamaica, and her husband at the time was abusing her, and the parents went to the house and they took the daughter and went into another room, and they were in the room, and he actually kicked the room door in and went in and dragged his wife out and tell the parents to get out of his house, that's his woman, that's his wife, and he can do as he please with her. Um, but do I say that the devil know who to frighten? Because some men would not try that with some families, right? You know that. So I know I have five brothers who are crazy. Well, one is gone now, but I have four brothers who are crazy. And it brings me to the point that I remember when I was pregnant with my daughter. As Basil is a ex-cop. And I remember I was so terrified of my oldest brother, Robert, that I was afraid to tell him that I was pregnant at 24, right? And it finally got to him. And so he called me the day. And I remember he called me. I was at Ballot Avenue at the time, Tennessee, Ballot Avenue. And he was like calling me by my pet name. You okay? And I said, yes. And he said, you sure you're okay? And I said, yes. So now I realized he had a question to ask. And he asked me a third time, you sure you're okay? Yes. You have anything to tell me? No. You don't have anything to tell me? No. You're not pregnant? Took me a while to answer. And finally I said, yes. And he said, so for who? And I said, a man. He's like, I know it's for a man. It must be for a man. Who? And so I told him. And he said, oh, and I'm a police, right? And I say, yes. He said, all right, give him a number. Tell him to call me. Do you know that my crazy brother threatened the policeman to tell him that, look, you don't have to take care of my sister because I've been taking care of her from she was a child. But make sure you take care of the child because if you don't take care of the child, you have me to answer to, right? So there are times when we have to have family, and I think a lot of times, a lot of women are afraid to get persons involved because they don't want them being hurt. Because, as you said before, the threat, you don't want to be responsible if you're left alive. To say, well, I caused my family's death, or some of them would actually arm them and said, as you said, look what you caused me to do. But let me go back to Elijah, and she said, the earlier you leave, the better it is. And so, Tensi, I really applaud you. But can you tell us, because you spoke about that day when you went home to your son, your 5-year-old son, and what he said to you. How long after that did you leave?
Within months, like trying to remember when. Maybe within 2 to 3 months, I was out. But before that, I had a protective order because even though, like I said, he was a cop, but then I have a friend. She's like a sister to me too. She lives in Scotland right now. Her
Mhm.
boyfriend worked at the police headquarters, and she called him. And so when she called him, the local police, they could do nothing now because the directive is coming from the head
Commissioner's office.
commissioner's
Right.
office, and
Mhm.
they came out. The you know like a crew of men came out from Kingston to where I was living. And when they saw me, first of all, I was hiding because I was really scared, like, and I was like there, and it was like a drama anyway. Because by the time my brother, the brother that I followed, my twin, he heard, he was on his way to my house, and when he and the police got there same at the same time, he came out of his car with a machete, and the police was just there at the same time. The police said, "Put machete away," and he said, "No, I'm not putting it away. I'm going to kill this man. I don't care. I'll go to prison for my sister. That's my little sister." And the police spoke to him, and the police said, you know, "What is
We're
this?"
here behind
Yes,
Liz.
what is this? And he said, "Oh, no, no, I haven't done her anything. No, I haven't. No, that's a lie. I haven't done her anything." So the police said, "Come out from where I was," and I came out. And when they saw me, they were like, "Oh my goodness, this is an abused woman. You have to take you away." He started crying, like, "Oh, are you gonna let them lock me up?" I'm like, "Take him away." And then after that, I filed a protective. I said, "Take him away. Like, I have no feelings anymore. I'm done. Take him away." He was like, "No, don't let them lock me up in the same prison jail that I used to lock people up in," crying, tears, everything. "Oh, I'm sorry," and whatever. I said to the police, "Take him away. Take him away." That's it. And in a couple of days, I got the protective order and everything. And then I left. I mean, I had left because he couldn't come where I am, but then I left the country. Yeah. So that was it.
It is interesting that we do that. And, I have another program coming up because there are so many women who have basically, let me use the quote unquote, run away from all the hard work, all the things that they have worked for, all the things that they have achieved, and they have basically left all of those things behind to save their lives. So there's a program that I'm going to be looking at. Actually, I have that in my to come up where I'm looking at, starting over. How do you start over again after you have achieved
Everything.
ultimate? Because you had gone to the pinnacle of, administration. You had bought a house at a young age. You had vehicle. You had your child. You was looking for, a long and lasting marriage and love and family. Yet still, you had to leave all of that behind and join the list of persons who come up as, I don't know. But you know what I applaud you for? Because a lot of people have left their kids behind, and the kids suffer because the kids now become the abused because they can't catch your mother because your mother ran away. And so the kids become the abused. You know, I have a lot of friends, as you know. Some of them are friends, some of them are associates, some of them are whatever. But I think I have quite a number of good friends. And I remember I had a friend, Elite, and she was in a domestic abused relationship. And it was even worse because she couldn't carry a good helper. And if she wanted a helper, she wanted somebody in the household to help with then her husband would a relationship with them. And so she had a nice little helper she got from the country, came in, and of course the husband is his usual thing, got the young lady pregnant. And when that happened, she said, Marcia, I cried because I felt like I had given this young woman, a basket to carry water. And she said she didn't fire her. She said she had her there and she had her there and the baby was born there and she took care of the baby and everything like that. Eventually, she got a visa for the girl, and so the girl was like, no, a part of the family. I don't, whatever. And she said the girl is always asking her, Miss, why you don't leave him? Why you let him treat you like that? Why you let him beat you up like that and stuff like that? Eventually, the young lady who had the child who worked with her got a visa and came up because she had family here, and so she decided she wasn't coming back. Do you know that years afterward, when she decided to leave the husband, that's who she came up and stayed with until she got herself sorted out? So sometimes in life, we also have to remember that the good that we do comes back to us. Because if she had, thrown out that little young girl, done other things, so, you mash up my relationship. Because was the thing is that she could accept responsibility. She knew what her husband was up to, and so she didn't so much blame the girl because she said the girl would always come to her and tell her that, Miss, that him come in my room. But as she opened her mouth, he would batter her down, and stuff like that. And so I have Yvonne Wright is saying, and Yvonne is also a retired superintendent of police. And she said, Mrs. Ramsey, your story is so touching. I hope you got all the help and counseling necessary, also that mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually you are healed. God bless you and all the best in your endeavors. And Elijah is asking, did the separation influence your migration tendency? Yes, Elijah, it did. Actually, it wasn't a separation, it was a thing that she had to separate herself from it. And the best way that she knew how to do it was just to leave the island of Jamaica. And do you have any regrets, Stency?
Nope, absolutely not.
What about trust? How did you learn to trust someone again to the point wherein you were able to form a relationship and is now married to my handsome, gorgeous, loving brother in law? Because I consider you my sister. How did you pass that stage where you could trust again?
I would say the healing process, it was all because of God. It wasn't because of myself, because the hurt and looking back on all that I had acquired in my young age, working in bauxite industry, doing so good, owning my own house at a young age, car and everything. And I was like Marcia said, I was at the pinnacle. My company was sending me to university. I was doing so well. But after a while I was here, the process, it took a lot of prayer, and just seeking God and getting the support of others. And someone asked a question about counseling. I While I was in Jamaica, I didn't get any counseling. To be honest, I didn't get any counseling. And when I came here, in order for me to have develop a trusting relationship, to really trust someone, to get to the point where I'm going to be married to this person, it took a lot. But to be honest, I just owe it all to Jesus. I don't know how it happened. Our meeting is like, that's another forum. Our meeting was, I would say, it was designed by God. It was designed by God, and it took him a year, 1 year, to be pursuing me, 1 year to the day, to pursue me for like a year before I even gave him the time of day. I would hang up the phone on him. I would say, "Don't call my phone." I would just be so upset every time, like so angry, like I don't want no man, I don't want nothing, I don't want a relationship with nobody. I don't, and I would be so angry. And he would sometimes talk to me and say, like, "You know what? You think you're the only person that a man has ever hurt? I've been hurt by a woman." I'm like, "So what? I don't want to hear your story. Like, my story is so, like, I felt like I lost everything." And he kept pursuing me. And it took, I must say, it's a divine intervention why I really said yes. And then only to find out that his mother and my mother were best friends in Jamaica. They were best friends. And that was like, whoa. It was just like, it was kind of scary. And when his mother heard that he was pursuing me, her comment was that, "No, I can die in peace." And I'm like, "Really?" And she said, "Yes, I can die in peace." And she said to him, "Listen, you've gotten a good woman. Take care of her. Don't treat her bad. Whatever you do, stick with her, and just be there for her." But again, like I said, it took a lot. It took a lot. I actually was planning revenge. To be honest, I was planning revenge. I was like, someone will get back at this man, because I lost everything, like, because of him. I felt like, I had to run and leave everything. I was planning revenge, but God stepped in and changed things around, and I didn't no longer want revenge. I felt sorry for him. I felt like, oh my God, you don't even know what you've lost out on. You've lost out on a good woman. You've lost out on a great son. You have not seen your son grow up. What is that? That is on, the loss is on you. But again, it took a lot of prayer for me to forgive, because it was hard to forgive. I'm telling you, I'm not, no joke.
You forgive me?
Oh, absolutely. 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 There were times when I would talk about him and I would get so angry and all worked up, and I wouldn't even call the name. That's how mad I was. But it came to the point that I forgave him, to the point like that when his mom passed, I was able to reach out and then, financially assist, with his mom's burial. Yeah, I was able to do that. I felt so bad. But then I didn't do it without discussing with my husband. I said to my husband, "This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it because of my son." And my husband said, "Sure." He supported me. He's like, "Sure, go ahead." And I did that. So I truly forgave him. I truly did. Years ago,
You
I
know,
would say, "Oh no," but no, yeah, I did. Yes, I have.
there is a phrase that I heard some time ago, and it says, "He who angers you controls you."
Yeah.
So you
Yes.
have taken away that
The power
control
and control. I
by
took it back.
forgiving
I
him.
took it
Yes,
back. Yep.
yes.
Absolutely.
He, for those who want to hear that phrase, it is, "He who angers you controls you." Um, the power lies within us as to how much control we're going to give to anyone. The power lies within us to let go, to know when to let go. There's a song that is sung by my favorite singer. What's his name? You got to know when to hold them.
Kenny Rogers.
Hold them. know when to walk
Kenny
away. And
Rogers,
know
the
when,
moment.
yeah, Kenny Rogers, right. So, ladies, and I'm also speaking to men because there are a lot of men out there who are being abused by their women. And that's another program. And so I say to us all who are watching, Elijah, I'm just going through the comments here. She says, if it wasn't for the love of God, Timothy, you'd end up in prison for those wicked men, but God. And then Yvonne says, Yvonne also has her fair share of testimony. Forgiveness is a wonderful thing.
Absolutely.
It makes you feel so good.
Free, like you lost some weight.
So, yes. So, it's an hour and 20 minutes in the making. And, I do thank you again, Tensi. And I'm happy that this is a forum that you have chosen to share this for the first
Praise
time
God.
publicly.
Yes.
Because a lot of people who know you would never know what you have been through. A lot of people, and that is why it is important that we don't judge and we don't make assessment and we don't do our own judgment call. Because a lot of people might look at it and say, oh, look at the good job she had. And she picked up herself, went to America, doing domestic work, doing this for people, doing that, doing, because, people always have our story.
Oh
They
yes,
write our
I
story
I
for us.
got my fair share of that.
Yes, yes. So as Mrs. White said before she left, she said support. And even if you don't know the cause and the root of the story, still let us give support. Where possible, where we can ask questions. And if the person is comfortable to share with you, because not everybody wants to share, because unfortunately, a lot of time people share their story with us, but in telling the story, we change a word. And by changing a word, we change the entire sentence, we change the entire outlay of what has been relayed to us. So by the time it get to somebody else, it's a whole different ball game than what was actually expressed. So if you know somebody who is experiencing, or you assume that they're experiencing abuse in any way, shape, or form, I ask you, um, don't let it become something that you're gonna, spread the word about. If there is any way that you can help, if there's any, person or organization that can be of benefit and help to the person being abused and even to the abuser, because as I relayed the story of my friend earlier on today, the gentleman that I spoke with, a lot of men are suffering. They too have no idea of
Yes.
even why, because as my friend said, he was so angry at his mom. And every time, he administered the abuse to his partner, he was just thinking, oh my God, she sounds so pathetic when she cries. That's how my mom sounded. Why did my mom, deal with this? Why did she take it? You know, let us listen. Let us learn also to listen to our children. Our children can guide us. Our children knows a lot more than we tell them. As Tensi mentioned, her 5-year-old was able to say to her, at that point, certain things that she really looked into and caused her to have made that decision that no, now is the time to go. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we go, I'm just going to ask you up on over to our YouTube page. Give us a like, give us a thumbs up, give us a share, give us and subscribe to our program. This is Marcia here with CS Bite and a Mouthful. And we ask you to join us next week when we will be looking at another very interesting topic of discussion next week, Wednesday evening, uh, as we continue on Sears Bite and a Mouthful. Until then, thank you for joining us. To all our viewers, thank you for your comments. Thank you for your thoughts. Thank you for your, just everything. Just thank you for the support and
Interaction.
for being here weekly with us. Tensi, I love you, my sister. Um,
Yes.
hold on, we will talk. Just one
Yes.
second, please.
Okay.
We will see you next week. viewers. Thanks
Thank
again.
you all. Yes, thank you for having me.